Turn that on.
Okay, we're there. Folks, where we left off at, we are on second reading amendment number 59 to Senate File 1. And we were right at the end. If there's anyone left, the sponsor has one last time to talk, but if anyone else has a comment for the second time before, this is your last chance. And if not, once the sponsor has risen, we're there. I see none. Senator Case.
Mr. President, I think we have to move forward based on facts and not supposition. There are people that don't qualify for the exchange now that don't qualify for Medicaid. That's the coverage gap. They don't have a choice. There is indeed some people above the coverage that could qualify for the exchange. But in no way, sir, is it the majority. It is a minority of the people without coverage now. I've been working with the free clinic in Lander, and they work very hard to try to get coverage for anybody that walks in the door. The last thing they want to do is to give stuff away for free, believe me, because they're limited on budget and there's a lot of need. So they served 144 patients last year. They've been open a year. 78% were working. When people walk in the door, they're able to figure out a few of them that qualify under different coverages, including the exchange. Good for them. We could be doing the same thing. People really don't choose not to have health insurance, Mr. Chairman. People continue to work past retirement to maintain health insurance, because not having health insurance is incredibly scary. It's incredibly scary, Mr. President. We don't have health insurance and you're a single mom. How do you think that family has a quality of life? If mom's sick, she can't work. Probably if she's not working and the family's on the down and out, do you think the kids are getting to school regularly? Do you think she's reading to the children every night? It ain't happening like that. Our healthcare system in Wyoming is very fragile. We've had a kind of a bonus 3 years with COVID and the ARPA funding and the COVID relief funding. A lot of that went into healthcare facilities all around the state. It was a great ride, Mr. President. The ride is over. This is a baseline budget. We're looking at the future of Wyoming, sir. We're looking at a future where our basic industries are under attack, where we can't attract a workforce, and where we have the lowest economic and population growth of anybody in the West. We could take and put $200 million into our communities around the state for healthcare. There is some leakage to providers outside the state, but most of it goes right to the local providers. That's why they want this. Doctors, nurses, clinics, hospitals, they're telling you to pass this. There is no coverage gap that's realistic that affects this decision. And here we are. It's a time for you to think inside and do what you can for Wyoming, the economic success and progress of Wyoming. Every year, more states pass it. No state has reversed it, although we could. It's been passed most recently by initiative, and surveys reveal that both people of both parties, all ages, support it in Wyoming. Thank you, Mr. President. I look forward to your positive vote.
Thank you. We are on second reading amendment number 59 to Senate File 1. Chief Clerk will, well, as money involved, Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Second reading amendment number 59. Anderson, excuse. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? No. Beitman? No. Boner? No. Bouchard? No. Brennan? No. Case? Aye. Cooper? No. Dockstetter? No. Ellis? No. French? No. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? No. Kinski? No. Cole? No. Landon? No. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? No. President Driscoll?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Second reading amendment number 59, 7 aye, 23 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, second reading amendment number 59 to Senate File 1 has failed to pass the Senate. Last amendment, the one that Senator Scott was looking for. Second reading amendment number 58 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk will please read the amendment.
Senate File 1, second reading amendment number 58, section 330, page 159, after line 11, insert.
Senator Case.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I would move second reading amendment number 58. Ladies and gentlemen, what this does is it doesn't hit our fastest growing and now second largest industry by taking away the tourism tax that was in the last amendment. But it's late. It's past 10:30. We still got general file. I would ask that this amendment be withdrawn, and I'll bring it on third reading. I will bring it, and it does not affect the tourism budget.
Without objection, so ordered. Second reading amendment number 58 to Senate File 1 has been withdrawn. Folks, that ends the second reading. Senate File 1 having been read two separate times. The question is, so the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Pursuant to Joint Rule 14-1B, third reading will begin the second legislative working day after reading is completed. Okay, we're back. Think about this, we're right after lunch, folks. We're just coming back in. Standing committee reports.
February 19, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 64, Mineral Royalties, Proportional Severance Tax Refunds, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Cooper, Dockstader, Ellis, and Jones. No, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Dockstader, Chairman. February 19, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate Joint Resolution 2, Foreign Adversaries, Prohibited Property Ownership. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Brennan, Furphy, Kolb, and Pappas. Senator Boner, Chairman. February 19, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 77, Homeland Defense, Infrastructure Reporting and Investigating. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Brennan, Furphy, Kolb, and Pappas. Senator Boner, Chairman. February 19, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 44, Limited Mining Operations Amendments. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Dockstader, Ellis, and Jones. No, Senators Cooper and Rothfuss. Senator Dockstader, Chairman. February 19, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 102, Foreign Property Ownership's Critical Infrastructure. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Boner, Brennan, Furphy, Kolb, and Pappas. Senator Kolb, Acting Chairman.
Thank you, Randy. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 77, Homeland Defense Infrastructure Reporting and Investigating, as well as Senate File 102, Foreign Property Ownership and Critical Infrastructure, have appropriations. I ask that they be re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations, at this time.
Without objection, so ordered. Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that Senate File 64, Mineral Royalties, Proportional Severance Tax Refund, be re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations, as an
Without
appropriation.
objection, so ordered. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, with that order of business, consideration of bills on general file.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate resolve itself into committee of the whole.
Heard the motion, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Division. All those in favor stand. Okay. There's a motion, folks. All those in favor stand. We're going to count the votes.
We got to do committee of the whole. 4 gumballs.
Motion is passed. Senator Case.
Committee of the whole will come to order. First file for our consideration is Senate File 103. The reading clerk will please read the file.
Senate File 103, Wyoming Prime Act, sponsored by Senator Salazar, an act relating to marketing homemade goods. It was referred to Committee Number 5, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators French, Hicks, Ide, Kolb, Larson, and Steinmetz. Senator Steinmetz, Chairman.
Heard the reading of the file. What is your pleasure, Senator Steinmetz? You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 103, Wyoming Prime Act, do pass. And for an explanation of this good little bill, I call on Senator Salazar.
Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Wyoming Prime Act is very simply a bill that allows local producers, ranchers and farmers to sell their meat products without USDA approval. However, there are many restrictions on this proposal. The optimum language is page 3, line 6. The producer may sell meat products from cattle, sheep, swine, or goats raised by the producer that were slaughtered on the premises of the producer or at a custom slaughter facility if the following conditions are met. They cannot be, the meat products are produced from animals that are raised, slaughtered, processed, and sold in Wyoming. The meat products are sold directly to the informed end consumer and no one else. A prominent written warning statement shall be delivered to the informed end user. This is, for all intents and purposes, a trigger bill. The United States Congress has the Federal Prime Act currently before them. This cannot take effect until Congress passes it. And as I mentioned on introduction of this bill, this is an opportunity for those local dollars to stay within the community. I think people are looking for local foods rather than national chained food. And finally, this, I think, directly helps the cost of food prices by being competitive. I ask for your support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Salazar. Any questions for the senator? Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I wish to declare a conflict of interest. We do sell beef, locally grass-fed beef. This would be a help to us. And I'd have a
Thank you, Senator Scott. Conflict noted. Senator Driscoll.
Carbon copy of the last.
Carbon copy. Conflict noted, sir. Who else would like to declare conflict or address this bill? Anybody else? Seeing nothing, all those in favor of Senator Steinmetz's motion, that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with a do pass recommendation on Senate File 103, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 103 is passed Committee of the Whole. Next file for our consideration is Senate File 45. The reading clerk will please read the file.
Senate File 45, Vulnerable Adults Civil Cause of Action 2, sponsored by Senator Nethercott, an act relating to adult protective services, was referred to Committee Number 1, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Case, Cooper, Landon, and Schuler. Excused, Senator Furphy. Senator Lander, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the file. What is your pleasure, Senator Landon?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report a do pass recommendation on Senate File 45, Vulnerable Adults Civil Cause of Action 2, and for a look at this bill, I'd ask that you please call on Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good senators, you have in front of you Senate File 45, Vulnerable Adults, Civil Cause of Action. Good senators, as you might recall from introduction, this comes from the work of the Vulnerable Adult and Mental Health Task Force. This was essentially a bill adopted by that task force during the interim as a result of a timing issue. We couldn't get it to the Joint Judiciary Committee in time, but certainly we got it to the Senate Judiciary Committee today. that approved its value to the people of the state of Wyoming, in addition to that vulnerable adult task force. What the bill does is really addresses a critical gap in the state of Wyoming concerning remedies, civil remedies available to both the vulnerable adult and those acting on the vulnerable adult's behalf in order to recover damages resulting from that exploitation. Really, what the bill does is really expands the scope of people who may be able to take action on behalf of that vulnerable adult. There's a listing of all of those individuals there. Uniquely, it also allows an estate to go after civil remedies concerning that exploitation. With that, I think it's a very important bill for this legislature and for the people of Wyoming to have this tool in the toolbox to protect vulnerable adults. With that, I'm happy to stand for questions and look to your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions for the senator? Are there any questions? Any questions? Seeing no questions, Senator Bouchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've read a long case from here in Cheyenne, and it looked like everyone went through a lot of pain. And in the end of all of it, the investigation, the officer says, I believe it's a civil matter and it should be pursued via civil avenues. There is no evidence that the person, I'm not going to say the name, but the person acted with any criminal intent at the time in relation to the treatment of their relative. And when I read all this case and I look at the things that are in this bill, this thing looks like it's a chilling effect for someone actually taking care of their loved one. And that's exactly what's in this case. It's a big case here. This is just one of the police reports. And basically when the family starts fighting over the money, this seems to me, this could really jam up the works of the process working. Somebody makes a complaint, well, the police investigated, made their recommendation. I would be afraid to be one of these family members with all of this stuff. Why do we have to change this? How did we get along all these years to now have to make this kind of change? I'd just like to have a clearer explanation of what's going on here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bouchard. Any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So these types of cases are very complex and all of them are painful. I can't speak to any specific case that someone's read about a police report, but typically the abuse involves a family member or a close trusted individual, which can be confusing, particularly to law enforcement, which is another reason why this bill is in front of you. Law enforcement doesn't really have the bandwidth to investigate some of the complex financial crimes associated with that abuse of a vulnerable adult. But that is a requirement in order to be proved for abuse of the vulnerable adult. The DFS is limited in their ability to take action as well. This is a requirement to be proven in a court of law. I think there's a lot of safeguards and protections there. I don't think it's going to increase litigation or chill anyone's behaviors. Certainly, if you're a power of attorney for someone or a conservator or a guardian, you have taken on the responsibility of being a fiduciary on that individual's behalf. But as we often know, as people enter into their elderly years, predominantly, and this isn't limited to the elderly, but obviously who we think about the most here in these circumstances, their ability to be exploited in a variety of ways is unlimited based on those who are around them in the time before their death. And there is an inability, perhaps for their cooperation or for others to know about that abuse until after it has occurred or until recovery is too late. And so this bill provides that remedy through the courts, still requiring things to be proven in a court of law, either in front of a jury or a court, in order to, one, establish the exploitation, to prove that you have standing to bring it, and then to prove those damages associated with that exploitation. So pretty high bars to establish, but that's what the bill does. Currently, I would say also that remedy is not available. You either have a criminal case, of which law enforcement is candidly not equipped to investigate, and/or sometimes you can sue for breach of a fiduciary duty in the event that they are in that capacity, and they're not, potentially not. You can review an agent's conduct under a power of attorney, but if they're not in that power of attorney capacity, there's really very little you can do. Oftentimes, the vulnerable adult may have agreed in some fashion or form to some of the transactions, but didn't fully appreciate or understand the authority they were granting to another individual before letting them sign in their checkbook or have access to bank accounts. And so this allows for somebody to really bring the issues before a court of law and evaluate the weights of justice with those concerns.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Any other questions? Seeing no questions, the question before the Committee of the Whole is Senator Landon's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, that it do so with a do pass recommendation on Senate File 45. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Senate File, I just broke the deal. Senate File 45 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next file for our consideration is Senate File 76. The reading clerk will please read the file.
Senate File 76, Prostitution Amendments, an act relating to crimes and offenses, sponsored by Senator Ellis, was referred to Committee Number 1, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Case, Cooper, Furphy, Landon, and Schuler. Senator Landon, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the file. What is your pleasure, Senator Landon?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report this evening, that it do so with a due pass recommendation on Senate File 76, Prostitution Amendments. And for a description of the bill, I'd ask that you call on Senator Ellis.
Senator Ellis. Thank you, Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In Wyoming, we have our sexual assault statutes, and there are two crimes defined: sexual intrusion and sexual contact. Sexual contact means touching with the intention of sexual arousal, gratification, or abuse of the victim's intimate parts by the actor, or of the actor's intimate parts by the victim, or of the clothing covering the immediate area of the victim or actor's intimate parts. Interestingly, though, however, our prostitution statutes only include sexual intrusion to be considered a crime. As a result, there are a number of illicit massage parlors in Wyoming, between 15 to 20 alone. These illicit massage parlors can offer customers manual sexual stimulation without fear of prosecution. Why is this a problem? Well, sexual contact is often an entry for victims to enter the full-blown world of prostitution and human trafficking. This issue came to me from the Wyoming Attorney General's Human Trafficking Task Force, and this issue came to their attention more than 5 years ago from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. That agency was trying to combat human trafficking by targeting illicit massage parlors, but they were unable to do so because of this loophole in Wyoming law. Although a bill to address this loophole has been out there for a while, it's failed to get traction, and we'll talk about why. Opponents of this bill argue that it should only apply to those who solicit prostitution, not the prostitutes themselves who are a victim. I would agree that people providing prostitution services are victims. Most of these prostitutes are either female or transgender women, and the vast majority of sex buyers are male. However, studies show that these women face exceptional risks of murder and violence at the hands of male sex buyers. This is true even in areas where prostitution is legal or decriminalized. According to one study of prostituted women working in a massage parlor on the West Coast, in a city in the West Coast, they found 62% had been beaten by their customers. To the state just south of our border, one study found that workplace homicide rates among prostituted women were 7 times higher than it was for the most dangerous occupation for men, which were taxi drivers. So yes, the people providing prostitution services are victims. The good news, however, is that we are doing a better job viewing these people as victims rather than just prosecuting them. For example, our laws in Wyoming contain a safe harbor provisions in our human trafficking code. It says a victim of human trafficking cannot be criminally liable for any commercial sex act or other criminal acts as a result of them being trafficked. Further, in testimony in committee, we heard from a nonprofit representative who works with these victims. She told us a story about an incident in Natrona County. She sat with the victim who was human trafficked and providing sex acts, and she testified that the police never arrested her. Instead, she was questioned, and they offered to provide her shelter away from her traffickers and other assistance. So having coverage in both part of the statute gives law enforcement more tools to actually help get these prostitutes, these victims, out of bad situations. Opponents might also argue that prostitution, all of it, should be legal. However, we heard testimony that countries that have legalized or decriminalized sex work see a surge in human trafficking, particularly in European countries where many studies have been conducted. Essentially, these are not entrepreneurs. These are pawns of a commercial sex industry. But to bring the point closer to home, we heard testimony as we worked this bill in committee about a case in Wyoming where a sex worker was trafficked into this country. She was paid in the currency of her home country, but if you converted that amount into US dollars, she ended up receiving, I believe it was only 11 cents for it was either each service or each hour of her work. This victim was essentially in debt bondage. She had no freedom to leave the people who trafficked her into this country and forced her to perform these sexual acts. Because Wyoming has failed to close this loophole, our municipalities have tried to criminalize illicit massage parlors using city ordinances, but these powers are limited. For example, we heard a representative from the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Office who testified that these municipal ordinances do not apply in the county, leaving them with no option to prosecute if these crimes occur outside city limits. And finally, we also heard testimony that allowing for these acts, which are offered in illicit massage parlors, threatens those working in legitimate massage parlors. These legitimate massage therapists are being asked to provide sexual acts, putting them in an uncomfortable or even dangerous position when they are solicited, which threatens the legitimacy of their business and the entire industry. So for these reasons, Senators, I'm asking you, please support this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Ellis. Any questions for the senator? Any questions? Not seeing any questions. The question before us is regarding Senator Landon's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, that it do so with a due pass recommendation on Senate File 76. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Senate File 76 has passed Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 6. The reading clerk will please read the file.
Senate File 6, Nursing Home Administrators Temporary Licenses, sponsored by the Labor Committee, an act relating to professions and occupations. It was referred to Committee Number 10, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Baldwin, Barlow, Bouchard, Dockstader, and Hutchings. Senator Baldwin, Chairman.
For the reading of the file, what is your pleasure, Senator Baldwin?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with an aye vote on Senate File 6, Nursing Home Administrator Temporary Licenses. For explanation, I turn to my back row buddy, Senator Dockstader.
Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bringing Senate File 6, Nursing Home Administrators Temporary Licenses. This simply authorizes the board of a nursing home which should temporary license when needed, and I'll hit the key points if I could, please, Mr. Chairman. Page 2, lines 1 through 8 would provide a temporary license for applicants who have submitted all requirements for licensure to start practicing while the board awaits the results of their background checks. As noted in testimony, nursing home facilities also conduct their own checks of applicants, so there is some assurance of the public's continued protection. Lines 10 through 15 would provide a temporary license for an individual who must complete their supervised experienced hours and the required national examination. Lines 17 through 23 would provide a temporary license for emergency situations. For example, when a nursing home administrator unexpectedly leaves and another qualified staffer is used, this is historically a director of nursing or hospital CEO, and they step in and assume the nursing home administrator's role while a permanent replacement is found. Page 3, lines 2 through 9, intended to ensure the temporary license holder is recognized as a nursing home administrator, clarifies that they must comply with the state standards. And finally, page 3, lines 11 through 23, and page 4, lines 1 through 13 are to add words temporary license to other relevant sections of the act. And with that, members of the Senate, ask for your approval on Senate File 6, Nursing Home Administrators Temporary Licenses.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for the senator? Any questions for the senator? Seeing none, then the question is on Senator Baldwin's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, that it do so with a due pass recommendation on Senate File 6. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Senate File 6 is passed. Committee of the Whole. Mr. Majority, floor.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. sir. It's-
Reading clerk will read the whole report.
Mr. President, your committee of the whole, having had under considerations bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 103, do pass. Senate File 45, do pass. Senate File 76, do pass. Senate File 6, do pass. Senator Case, Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Case,
Mr. President, I move for adoption of the committee of the whole report.
you've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is passed. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk. Senator Cooper, do you have something? Working on. Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a brief privilege of the floor.
Granted.
Before we adjourn, I'd like to recognize and thank our partners in the state of Wyoming, the Northern Arapaho tribe, who had a wonderful reception planned for us tonight. Obviously, we didn't make it, but I'd really like to recognize their effort and thank them for their.
Here. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk.
Mr. President, I move that we stand adjourned until 10 a.m. February 20th.
Senator Dockstetter,
Ready for announcements, sir?
announce it now. I was not sure what we were up to. Announcements.
Good with that, okay. Your Committee 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development will wrap it all up in one day, Wednesday, February 21st, with a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning in Room 2 and online. This is for Senate File 80, Solid Waste Management Definition Amendments, Senate File 96, Trusts and Bank Assets in Bankruptcy Clarification, Senate File 131, Regulatory Reduction Task Force 2. That's at 8 o'clock in the morning, Room 2, Wednesday, February 21st. And then to accommodate some people traveling in, we'll finish everything up, all of our bills, Wednesday, February 21st, upon the noon recess, Capitol Extension Room 4. That for Senate File 51, Unlawful Dissemination of Misleading Synthetic Media, Senate File 52, Wyoming Stable Token Act Amendments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, will meet Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., Committee Room 6, and online to hear two bills, Senate File 98, Statute of Limitations, Medical Procedures on Minors, Senate File 99, Chloe's Law, Children, Gender Change Prohibition.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Travel Committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources will meet tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock in Capitol Extension Room W2 to hear Senate File 125, Parimutuel Wagering Activities Amendments, Senate File 111, Mule and Whitetail Deer Separate Hunting Seasons, and Senate File 118, Bighorn and Domestic Sheep Relocation Federal Action.
Senator Landon.
Mr. President, your Committee 1 Judiciary has two special meeting times tomorrow. Tuesday, upon noon recess, we will take up, this is down in W4, we'll take up Senate File 63, Property Tax Exemption Residential Structures 2, Senate File 126, Property Tax Exemption Inflation Cap 2, Senate File 119, Property Tax Exemption Specified Real Property 2, and Senate File 121, Property Tax Homeowners Exemption. Again, that's at noon. We have a, upon adjournment, meeting scheduled in case we need to continue any of those bills aforementioned. We will again meet on Wednesday morning to finish up work for the Judiciary Committee.
Thank you. Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Your committee number 7, Corporations, will start at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm not going to read the list I read before lunch, but I will note, when the list was published electronically, it listed Senate File 102, Foreign Property Ownership Critical Infrastructure. That bill is not in our committee. That is in the Ag Committee, and they heard it yesterday. So that is not on our list. The plan tomorrow, this is the longest day for the Corporations Committee. We'll meet in the morning, starting at 7. We'll reconvene 15 minutes after noon adjournment and noon recess, and then we'll finish up upon adjournment tomorrow. And we're just going to start in the list in numerical order. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Kinsey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Appropriations Committee, Committee Number 2, tomorrow upon noon recess, will meet in State Capitol Room E301 and online. We will take up the following re-referrals. Senate File 23, Public Utilities, Senate File 53, 6th Judicial District, Senate File 106, Wyoming State Guard, Senate File 19, Developmental Preschool, Senate File 41, Banking Division, Senate File 42, Low Carbon, Senate File 57, Wyoming Adult Hearing Aid, Senate File 69, Hospice, Senate File 75, Omnibus Water, Senate File 77, Homeland Defense, Senate File 102, Foreign Property Ownership, and Senate File 64, Mineral Royalties, Proportional Severance Tax Refunds, and any other re-referrals received. I will say this, I've gone through the fiscal notes. Very many of them have either de minimis fiscal impact or only administrative fiscal impact. So with the consent of my committee, we probably will look at putting together a consent list on as many of those as we can to get them back out onto the floor.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources Committee, will meet tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. on Tuesday, February 20th, in the Capitol Extension Room 6 and online to consider Senate File 73, Concealed Firearms Permit Eligibility, Senate File 105, Wyoming Second Amendment Financial Privacy Act, Senate File 109, Prohibit Red Flag Gun Seizure Act. We have also reserved Committee Room number 2 and online on adjournment if those bills carry over. Thank you, Mr. President.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.